my screen. That's what I forgot to do last time. There we go. All right, well, welcome second year sophomore students to your workshop. You'll find that we'll say it somewhere in here, the junior senior one will be next year. So I hope to see you again in the fall, certainly if not before that, okay? And if you have friends that are freshmen, theirs will be in the spring, and it'll be just fine in the spring. So what are we going to talk about today in regards to your future career in healthcare? We're going to talk about and look like what a competitive applicant to health professional school looks like. I'm going to have you all do a thoughtful self-assessment of how your academic and non-academic kind of credentials are shaping up. We're going to talk a little bit big picture kind of things about applications to professional school and the timelines and some additional details and things like that. For those of you that are medical, dental, or optometry, we're going to talk about committee evaluations, which is a more specific type of letter of recommendation. We'll talk about letters of recommendations kind of in general when we talk about the applications, but then we'll get a little more specific here. And then towards the end, I'm going to have you guys think about some goals for yourself for the next time period. And then whatever time we have left prior to 11:45, I will certainly take some questions. Everybody's sitting in the front, which is wonderful. So just by a show of hands, who's pre-med, who wants to be a doctor? Okay. The 2 or 3 that haven't raised their hand. Dentist, PA, optometry, PT, OT, perfect. Did I miss anybody? I think I got all the hands. Okay, good. Most of this presentation is going to be general to all of you, but I like to kind of know my audience, so that's good. Okay, so what on earth does make a competitive applicant? If you came to the freshman workshop, I reiterated some of this last year. If you were in a UNPP class or an honors class with me, we probably talked about some of the similar things, but it's worth, bringing it up. You're kind of just in the middle of your third semester here, so to speak. So a competitive applicant has 2 main qualities. One is good academic or quantitative metrics, things like grades, GPA, things like standardized test scores, things that you can put a number and a value on. And you could also say academic kind of activities. I would put research, honors, teaching assistant, tutor, those kind of things underneath there, okay? And so those are the kind of academic things that you want to be focusing on. We'll delve into the GPA and the test scores a little more deeply here in a moment. Besides those academic quantitative measurable things, there's a whole category of other things that are a little less numbers oriented. And those are the non-academic qualitative factors or credentials. So what kind of things should you be thinking about doing? Hopefully you're doing some of them. Hopefully you have plans for some other things. Hopefully some of these things are on your resume and so on. Meaningful healthcare experience. I put that at the top of the list for a reason. You can't say that you want to be a healthcare professional and apply to a health professional graduate school in a year or 2 or 3 down the road and not know what you're getting yourself into. You need some good healthcare experiences. That can come in many ways and shapes and forms, and we'll talk about that later. Extracurricular activities is part of it. You need to do some good things with your time. We'll talk more about that. Community service, community service, volunteerism, something to help your community, and leadership. We'll expand on all of these things. So it might be oversimplifying, but I break it down into 2 areas, academics and non-academics. All of those areas are critical. We're going to focus first on the academic metrics, okay? Because I think that really should be your #1 goal. Without good academics, even with a lot of the rest, your application could fall apart, right? So how good of academics do you have to have? Some students think they have to have a perfect 4.0 to get accepted to medical or another health professional graduate school of choice. You do not have to have a perfect 4.0, but you do need to be very strong in your GPA. We recommend a minimum 3.5 GPA across the board for all the different health careers. That's half A's and half B's is a 3.5, right? But the honest truth is, for medical school, for example, for OT school, for dental school even, a 3.5 is a little low for a lot of those programs. Okay, so a 3.7 to a 3.8, more in that range, is competitive for most of the graduate schools. We'll see some real numbers here in a moment about some of these things. Okay, so 3.7 to 3.8 is kind of more that recommended area. So that's definitely more A's than B's, right? More A's than B's. Medical schools, dental schools, they'll all look at trends. Did your grades improve as time went on to sophomore year to junior year and so on, and your coursework got more difficult? They'll look at that. So if you were off to a rocky start freshman year, but you really got it together, they'll take that into account. Okay. They'll also look at other things like, did you take fairly easy 12 credits or 13 credits every semester and supplement that with a lot of summer school to make up the difference? Or did you take most semesters of a full load, 15 to 17 credits? Because in professional school, you're going to take semesters of 20 to 25 or more credits. That's a lot. The professional schools want to see that you can manage a rigorous course load. Now, that doesn't mean every single semester I want you to do 17, 18 credits, but if you're doing 12 all the time, it might be a question of whether you can handle the rigor of a medical graduate school curriculum. So keep some of those things in mind. Okay. So on the next two slides, this one and the next one, this is recent admissions data of students that matriculated, meaning actually entered and started the program at a whole bunch of different health professional schools. Okay. So since a lot of the room is medical school, the top three here are medical. These are MD schools, our two in-state public medical schools in Tennessee. Some of you met with Miss Stephanie Cole on Monday from ETSU's Quillen College of Medicine, right? This is Lincoln Memorial, our osteopathic medical school in Tennessee. It's a private school, but they do cater towards people from Appalachia area, which includes us, okay? We have the UT Health Sciences Centers in Memphis Dental School. There's no optometry students in the room. But anyways, if you look at average cumulative overall GPA of students, again, that matriculated, that entered graduate school with these places, we have an average science GPA, and then we have a mean test score. And those test scores, of course, vary. MCAT for medical school, DAT for dental school, and so on. If one of these programs, medical, dental, or optometry, is for you, you want to take a note of what? Look at the nice GPAs. Okay. My recommendation was what? 3.7 to 3.8. Okay. 3.72, 3.76, 3.65, just a tick lower, right? And so you want to definitely be above that 3.5 and closer to that 3.7 to 3.8 range, because that's where students matriculate. Okay. Test scores. For all the medical students in the room, the MCAT is just becoming more and more competitive. The average scores are going up and up and up. We'll have a slide later. Things. You cannot take any of the standardized tests lightly, especially the MCAT. You must prepare. Okay, and that there's lots of involved in preparing, but I'm just going to reiterate: do not take the MCAT especially lightly. Okay, so take a look at that snapshot if this is you. I know we have at least one OT in the room. Okay, so we have PA school, pharmacy school, occupational, and physical therapy school listed. Now this is just one school, right, for each. Okay, but this offers, again, another snapshot, with the exception of pharmacy that's got just a tick under that 3.5 average GPA. You're in that 3.7 to 3.8 range overall. The science GPAs usually are always a tick lower. But look at that physical therapy school, 3.88, 3.84. That's very high. Okay, so I hope this underscores the good academics, good GPA, strong test score kind of thing. Okay. And we are recording this, so if you ever want to go back to this data, you certainly can. So that's just average data for different schools. What about Tennessee Tech students? What about peers that have gone before you? All right, so I have some medical school and dental school data for students that were from Tennessee Tech that applied and in some cases matriculated to medical school and dental school on the next few slides. So the first slide here are Tennessee Tech students who entered into allopathic or MD medical school for the class of 2019 and 2020. So this is very recent. Okay. All you see is cumulative GPAs in the first column and MCAT scores. The left column here, or left grouping here in black, are students that were accepted to medical school, and the right not accepted. It's sorted by increasing GPA. That's how it's sorted. So you can see a big snapshot of students that applied and got in or didn't. Now, some of these students that didn't get accepted are on the accepted list for certain on the osteopathic slide that's about to come. But what do I want you to look at? Look at the strong cumulative GPAs of Tennessee Tech students who are accepted versus the national average. We're a tick above over the last couple years, which is wonderful, but very strong GPA. Yes, there were some 4.0s, but there were some not 4.0s, okay? And then MCAT scores. Until you start delving into the test and the MCAT scores and things, some of those numbers might not mean much to you, but higher and higher and higher are what the MCAT scores are going. So whereas maybe 5-6 years ago, we would see students with a 500 or a 502 or a 504 getting accepted, that's harder and harder to be the case. Okay, 508, 510, and above. Okay, and then you can see the range, the wide range of students that weren't accepted. It looks like there's some good metrics here for students that weren't accepted, and you may be able to speculate, you maybe not. Maybe they interviewed poorly. Maybe they submitted a really late application, which these programs mostly go on rolling admissions. So students that apply sooner can get interviews sooner, can get acceptances sooner, and so on. Okay? So there could be all kinds of reasons. So quickly, at the osteopathic medical school information, you'll see the average GPA and the average MCAT score goes down just a little bit. Okay? So students that were accepted to DO schools and then not accepted. Again, some of the students that weren't accepted to MD were accepted to osteopathic schools. The thing about applying to osteopathic schools, the message here in green, you've got to have an understanding of what DO is. What's the osteopathic philosophy? What's the approach? Okay? What's the manipulative medicine, the manipulative treatment that you're taught? Okay? Many DO schools, this is also important, many DO schools require a letter of recommendation from a physician. That's pretty much almost across the board for all the osteopathic schools. Most of them require a letter of recommendation from a physician as part of your recommendation letters. Some DO schools specify that that letter from a doctor has to be from a DO. So if you are interested in osteopathic medicine, I can provide you with later some really good resources to start reading and looking about it, okay? But you really have to get connected with the DO, shadow somebody, work with somebody in the ER or whatever the case may be, because in some cases you might have to have a letter from an osteopathic physician. Dental school, okay? You'll see Tennessee Tech average GPA 3.6. That's right around the national average for students that are accepted to dental school, or actually that entered dental school, right? DAT scores here, around 20 or above is what you want to aim for on the DAT. For the students that weren't accepted, in general, lower GPAs, lower DAT scores. But the one critical thing that I wanted to point out is, for those of you that are dental, is the importance of the perceptual ability test for the DAT. The PAT is really important, okay? The perceptual ability, all these puzzles and things that they have you do, some really good practice time for most students is required for the perceptual ability part. Subscore, if you will, of the PAT. This is separated into academic average and then the perceptual ability test on the DAT. So what I want you to do for now is think about you and your very own situation right now. Where does your personal GPA stand in your sophomore year? I would say if your GPA is above that 3.5, that you're off to a great start. Certainly keep up the good academic work for sure. If you're in the 3 to 3.5 range, that's a good start. But as the data shows, you really need to start kicking it up a notch. You may decide, you know what, I was a slow starter freshman year. I might need a little more time, junior year, senior year, to enhance my record. And we can certainly talk about that. I would say, though, if you're in the below the 3.0 GPA range, that all is not lost, right? I'm never, ever, ever going to tell a student it's never going to happen for you. You might just need to do some things before you can get to your destination of a health professional school. So if you're struggling a little bit academically, keep the focus on your coursework. Go for the tutoring on all the other resources that the university and things offer. But it never hurts. Everybody should always have a backup plan, and it doesn't hurt to start thinking about backup plans. Post-baccalaureate programs are things that students do after they graduate to enhance their academics and so on. There's almost always something one can do to fix something, including a GPA. So this is your kind of academic self-reflection now. So what I want you to think about, and a lot of you are taking notes and you have paper, you can certainly write these things down. I want you to think for a few moments and self-reflect. What are your own personal academic strengths? Write a couple of your own, or if you want to type them in your phone, whatever works for you. What are your own personal academic strengths? And you have to counter that with, what are your academic weaknesses? Even if you're a 4.0 student, you still might have some weaknesses. Maybe you're a crammer. You can't cram in professional school so well, right? Maybe you just have one kind of basic study habit, and maybe that study habit or that way you study will translate when you get to professional school. Maybe it won't. So maybe you need to try some different study techniques, work in studying in groups, teaching somebody else how to do something, studying for shorter bursts of time, flashcards, not flashcards, and so on. So what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And then as far as those weaknesses go, think about how you can address those weaknesses to improve your academics. Is it more tutoring? Is it more office hours? Is it less social time and more study time? Is it finding a good study group? Is it reading about some study strategies and trying different things that might work for you? All right, the list could go on and on. So you want to continue this self-reflection about your academics certainly after you leave. Okay, then the whole second big grouping of things, the non-academic stuff, and this is where the content gets really fun, right? So you have to explore the healthcare profession somehow. You will have to do some semblance of shadowing, volunteer work in healthcare, paid employment. The list could go on and on and on. I know things have been harder the last year and a half with COVID-19. Everybody realizes that. The professional schools realize that. I don't know if that came up with Miss Stephanie the other day or not, but we can't all just use COVID as an excuse to not get any experience. The hospital is hiring like crazy, I'm told. Some dentists are still allowing students to come in and shadow. Volunteer places are still taking volunteers like hospice, and so on. So you really still have to get some healthcare experiences. And if you don't have any yet, my challenge to you is start somewhere, start soon. Start over fall break, start looking at things. Get something going for the second half of the semester or for winter break, line something up for the spring. It's critical that you get some good healthcare experiences. You'll have to enter all this information in your application later. What have you done with your time? Healthcare experience is one critical part. Sprinkle those experiences between now and when you apply. You have to show that you're a caring individual. How do you do that? I recommend, volunteer and community service type of activities. You can't spend 40 hours a week doing any of these things, right? So you have to use good pockets of time here and there. Find some things that you enjoy and get involved. If it's Habitat for Humanity, great. If it's ARF, the animal rescue people, which I've had a lot of people that are interested in human medicine do ARF, go for it. Okay. If it's your church, super. Okay, but you have to do a little bit of something, I think, to show that you're a helping, healing kind of person, and that's what you want to do with your life. Show it by doing it now. Lots of things, there's lots of other things you can do with your time that's filled with good stuff. And why should you do extracurricular activities, and why should you get involved with a church group? Why should you do any different activities that you might do? It's building lots of things that you might not even think about. Building communication skills, building conversational skills, learning how to look people in the eye, okay? Realizing that as a future healthcare professional, you will have a professional persona, right? That you will have to communicate with people. It's all very important. One that I didn't write down here, but time management. Doing stuff with your time builds good time management. And you need that. You'll need it now. You'll need it in professional school. You'll need it when you, excuse me, are a doctor or whatever. Okay. Students always ask me, do I have to do research? Do I have to do undergraduate research if I want to get accepted? You don't have to, but a lot of students do. So you might be applying with and competing with students that have rich undergraduate research. If research is not your thing, find something else and fill that void in your time with another good activity. But yes, certainly do undergraduate research, okay? Do meaningful activities, all right? All of these activities and things that you're going to do are going to help make clear your maturity level and what your motivation is to enter whatever health career of your choice, and help you to answer the question, why do you want to be a doctor, dentist, occupational therapist? Okay. So lots of non-academic factors. You can't go out and do 40 hours a week of all these things, but you have to start adding them in, okay? So I think I've already said it, but do things that are meaningful for you, because then when you write about them in your application, it's going to show how much you enjoyed it and how much you meant, and then you're going to focus on what you learned from each of your experiences. Again, we don't all have tons and tons of extra time, so think quality over quantity for many of these things. Okay, now I want you to do some self-reflection on this extracurricular kind of side of things. Answer honestly for yourself. Have you started to gain some meaningful experiences underneath healthcare, underneath community service or volunteer, underneath leadership, underneath extracurricular activities? For the leadership, that may or may not mean being the president or a different officer in a club. It may mean that, it may not. It might mean being a TA and then being a lead TA, right? It might mean being a part of a research group and training the new freshmen that come in, right? It might mean lots of things, but it doesn't have to always be president of the club for leadership. Of those 4 different main areas, which of those areas are your strengths as you're still self-reflecting? Which are your strengths? And then again, which are your weaknesses? What areas have you paid no attention to yet? Or which areas have you spent just a little bit of time on and you know you can improve and beef up? And then certainly, again, you'll want to address and think about, and again, this happens after you leave here, how are you going to address the weaker areas? Maybe you want to think about a direct plan and brainstorm 4 or 5 possible community service activities that you would potentially be interested in. And then over fall break, make some calls and so on. Okay, let's turn our attention to applications. Let's change gears just a little bit. So the different areas that you all are interested in have different applications. The timelines, though, to apply are fairly similar, no matter which health career you're interested in, okay? So the nice thing about the health professional graduate schools is they all have a common or a centralized application. They usually have CAS in the name. So for allopathic medical school, it's AMCAS. CAS. Okay. For occupational therapy, it's OT CAS. ADSAS for dental school, it's AAD SAS. It doesn't have a CAS in it, but it's pretty close. Okay, so they all have this common application. So what's that mean? That means once a year, the common application will open, usually in April through July. Every different discipline is a little different. Okay, but once a year, it's going to open up, and it's going to be open up for a set of months where students can start and complete their applications. This usually happens over the spring and the summer that these applications open. With a couple exceptions, PA school is one of them, and I think there is an occupational therapy school that oddly starts in January. Most of these programs start in the normal fall time. That might be like July, August, or September, depending on the specific medical school or dental school. Okay. But the nice thing about the centralized applications is, let's say you apply to 5 schools, or 10 schools, or 15 schools. It is not uncommon for students to apply to that many medical schools. Well, you don't have to fill out 15 different applications, you fill out one. But it's a biggie, it's a big application. Okay, and within that application, you will indicate you're going to apply to these 5, 10, or 15 schools. Now keep in mind, the more schools you apply to, the more the costs add up per school. There's plenty of time to think about all this, and you'll hear more about this at the junior workshop next year. Most of these programs run, I think I already mentioned it, on a rolling admission. So what that means is students start applying, they start submitting their applications, they start getting interviews, they start getting acceptances. If the deadline's not till December 1st, but the application's been open since May 1st, and some students applied in May, June, or July, in advance of the December deadline, that's early, and that's wonderful. If you apply in November, they may have accepted and filled half or more of their class. So you want to apply early and get your ducks in a row within reason. Okay? What kind of things do you have to get together? Well, you have to prepare, and like I said, take it seriously for your standardized test, the MCAT, the DAT, the OAT, the GRE for OT school. Okay. There's nobody in the room, I think, that said pharmacy. Most of the pharmacy schools in Tennessee are no longer requiring the PCAT for pharmacy school. You'll have to write a personal statement or a personal essay. Oops, personal comments, it's called different things. It's all the same thing, a big essay about you and about your interest in healthcare. And you'll want to practice that. Draft it and redraft it and edit it and show it to lots of people that you trust to read it. One of the big parts of the application is listing experiences and activities, jobs, community service, working at Taco Bell, working in a hospital, shadowing a doctor, volunteering at church. All those things go into your experiences and activities section. And you don't just list it and list the dates and list your boss. You have to write hundreds of characters of a reflection about what you did, what you learned, and what it meant to you. Okay. So if you haven't already started keeping like a diary or like a journal or like a logbook of activities that you do, especially in healthcare, but really everything, okay, I would, because you're going to have to spit it out in your applications later. If there's a particular experience or patient or little kid at church camp that you've worked with that is particularly meaningful and you learned a lot from it, jot down the story, jot down the details. Maybe it makes it into your personal statement later. Okay. Letters of recommendation are another big part of the different applications. We'll talk more about those on the next 2 slides. These applications are expensive. It can cost $200, $300, $400 or more to apply. It costs $200 to $400 to take the standardized test, plus the study materials for the standardized test. So this process can get expensive. So you want to be frugal, you want to save money for this stuff, and you want to be the best applicant you can be when you apply. So hopefully you only have to apply once, and then you're saving yourself money in the long run. Let's talk a little bit more on the next 2 slides about letters of recommendation. This slide here is a little bit general, it's broad. Okay. For most health professional graduate schools, a 3-letter recommendation minimum is common. There's some pharmacy schools that only require 2 and so on, but 3 is a good ballpark. 1 or 2 of those 3-letter minimum should probably come from a faculty member. I'd recommend from a science faculty or a prerequisite faculty member from a prerequisite course. Okay. 1 could be potentially from a healthcare professional, somebody you shadowed, worked under, something like that, volunteered with. And then sometimes there's room for a other letter, maybe your boss at Taco Bell or at Kohl's, right? The advisor from the club that you work so closely with, that kind of thing. Okay. In regards to the faculty letters of reference writers, if you are used to sitting way back there in any of your lecture halls, but you all don't because you're all sitting close, so you probably sit up front for class, which is good. But students that sit way in the back and that zip on out as soon as class is over, don't ever ask any questions, they're never front and center, the faculty don't know, it's challenging to get good strong faculty references from faculty, and you need them. I mean, it's a necessity. Schools will say you need 2 letters of reference from science faculty who've taught you, or 3 letters of reference, blah, 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 you know, different details. You have to get them. There's no way around it. I'm probably preaching to the choir because you're here and you're probably sitting front and center in your courses, but you need to make some connections with your faculty. Not in a, oh, I'm going to get a letter from them in the future, so I'm going to buddy up with them now. Not in that kind of way, but in a sincere, you know, I have real questions about organic chemistry and I'm going to go to office hours to try to work this out. Okay? And you have to get to know people around the university. So get to know your faculty and your mentors. The best references don't always come from the faculty member that you earned an A from. Sometimes if you struggled to earn that B, they can talk about the growth that you went through and how you improved over the course of the semester. And that's just fine too. All right, a little bit more specific information for the bulk of pre-meds and the dental in the room, and optometry as well. Okay. Many medical, dental, and optometry schools require what we call a committee evaluation. I'm going to click on this link after a while. This is going to take us to our specific committee information on our website. In general, if you want to get a committee letter, and it's too early right now if you're a sophomore. You want to be thinking about this about a year before you apply. Okay? So many programs require committee evaluation. 3 letters of recommendation are a minimum for our process. And this is one time in your life as a pre-health student that doing the minimum is probably okay. Okay? Most students do get the 3-letter of reference faculty minimum. Sometimes students have maybe a 4th, an extra one, and that's okay. Okay, but doing the minimum 3 is fine. Where do your letters of recommendation have to come from? Well, these are faculty references. So this is again why you have to get to know your faculty. 1 has to come from a chemistry faculty. You're taking Gen Chem and mostly organic, right? And some biochem in them. So that's a bunch of chemistry courses to choose from. You have to get a letter from a chemistry faculty. Again, this is just medical, dental, and optometry. You have to get a faculty reference from a biology professor that's taught you in a real good biology course. Anatomy, genetics, cell biology. It doesn't matter. Somebody that knows you well and can talk about you and how good you did in their class and the things you do in your extracurricular life and so on. The 3rd mandatory minimum reference can come from any other discipline. I kind of call that the wild card. You've already got a biology and a chemistry covered. It could be a second biology or chemistry for that 3rd one, or it could be another science, you know, physics or math or something, but it could be art, it could be speech, it could be an honors colloquium, it could be any other real discipline course, professors that know you well, and so on. We're going to give you some information for this committee process. We're going to tell you tons more about this next year when you come to the junior-senior workshop, okay? We're just going to ask you some information about you and your experiences and jot some things down, resume type information on some paperwork for us. Okay. Quickly here, I'll take us to our website where this is our health career track website. If you've not been there, It's just tentech.edu/health sciences. Okay. Lots of good information in the website, so peruse it. The part I'm talking about right now is about applying to professional school. This part at the top is very general, talking about all the different applications like we just kind of did. What's in it? Letters of reference, experiences, test scores, the personal statement. We talked about some of those big picture things. Links to all of our application services are here. Not our application services, but the past application services are here. And then when you get to the bottom, there's more information about the committee evaluations. And it's going to tell you all about it, including our timeline. There's a timeline for this. Okay, you can't just ask for a committee letter any time of year, and there's a process. There's an interview that goes along with it, and so on. I'm going to check my time. Okay, I'm all right, I think. Okay, so please visit our website, read all about the application stuff on there. What else comes out of the committee interview? Well, or what else comes out, what else is part of the committee letter process? You'll actually do an interview with me and another faculty or advisor type person on campus. It serves as good practice for a real professional school interview. I'll write an additional letter to support you in your application, in addition to the 3 faculty references. All of those letters, my letter, your faculty reference letters, they all get electronically submitted to professional schools in the summer or early fall when you apply. Okay, so this time next year, if you're on the right track for applying, summer after junior year is when you will apply. I guess I didn't state this, so I want to be clear. When those applications open in May, June, or July, that's to apply to start a year or so later. The application process takes a whole year. So if you're a true sophomore and you're going to be here for 4 years and you want to start professional school right after you graduate, all the ducks in a row, your grades are in good shape, your extracurriculars, everything's in good shape, then you will apply in the summer or early fall. Well, let me say it this way, the summer between junior and senior year. The application process will take the entire senior year. Going on interviews, getting acceptances, getting wait lists, getting rejections, and so on, to start in the fall after you graduate. In some cases, students decide to extend their timeline. They'll take an extra year or even 2, a growth year, a gap year, a glide year, all of which is a good thing. Some students think that taking a year is a bad thing. It's not. More time for growth and maturity, to fix your grades, to get more experience, whatever it is. No matter what year you're in and what timeline you're in, the committee process is available to you, so don't get worried about that. Okay? We will talk more and more about this next year. The students that attended the junior-senior workshop 2 weeks ago, they're starting to get their paperwork together now. That's for a committee interview this spring. That's to start applying to professional school this summer. That's kind of the timeline. Tests, standardized tests, MCAT, DAT, OAT, GRE, all these things. There are prep materials out there like crazy. You have to find what kind of prep works for you. Is taking a prep course that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars your cup of tea? Or is a few $100s worth of books more your thing? Is Kaplan or Princeton Review or exam crackers for you? You can sift through and decide, but you have to prepare for a few months usually for your tests. Okay? If you can manage, when the time comes to prepare for your standardized test, to take one less course, say in the spring, some students have found success doing that because they're taking less coursework, so the MCAT slides in as an extra course that they're not enrolled in, and they start studying it seriously for real. Okay? Tons of practice makes perfect. Okay? These tests, especially the MCAT, it's like an 8-hour test. It's a marathon. You wouldn't go out and run a marathon tomorrow for the first time. You would take months and study and prepare. Well, you'd take months to gear up to running for a marathon, right? Just like you gear up studying for a standardized test. They're expensive, but if you and your family have financial need, then there are fee waivers available for most of these tests and most of the common applications. I can't say it enough. Please take your standardized test preparation very seriously. Okay. That's pretty much the end of all the content. So what I want you to do for the next couple minutes, and then as you're doing this, I want you to think of some questions because we do have a few minutes. Based on everything that we've discussed, academics, non-academics, applications, timelines, and so on, write down 3 goals. If you can only come up with 1 or 2, I guess that's okay, but try to go for 3 goals that you're going to set for yourself for the next 1 year and then like 2 years, 1 to 2 year range, okay, 1 and 2 year range. And then try to think about a plan for how you're actually going to accomplish these goals that you're setting for yourself. Because if you have a goal in mind, if you've written it down, post it on your fridge, right? Then you'll think about working on it often, every day. And some of this stuff is little chunks, quality experiences. Maybe find 1 community service activity that you can get involved with this fall or this spring. And then you do it next fall and next spring. And then you do it senior year, fall and spring. And then you have built up this steady, committed experience over the last 3 years. And the professional schools will notice that. They will notice your commitment to service, your commitment to helping people, your commitment to whatever it is. So as you're writing down your goals, we have about 4 minutes to take some questions. So I will entertain any questions that y'all have. Don't be shy. Yeah.
When do you recommend taking the MCAT, like during the school year or like just when summer starts? Or?
Yeah, so when the question is, when do I recommend you take the MCAT? So I'll be honest, it's hard for some people to study and plan in earnest during the semester. Some students have all good intentions to take that 1 less class in the spring and really start to studying, but it gets hard. So some students do study all summer. The problem with studying all summer is if you're studying all summer to apply that summer, that makes for a very busy summer. And then if you study for the MCAT to take it August, you get your score in September. If only then you're applying in September, that's getting late. And so some students, I think, are forced to taking that extra year, which ends up turning to be, for most students, taking an extra year is a great thing. It's becoming more and more common. I've occasionally had students prepare in the fall, study for that last month before the test over Christmas break and take it in January. This isn't the majority though, and take the test in January, and if they have a great competitive score, then they're in really good shape. If you can manage and try to take it during the spring semester, right before, like the spring before you're going to apply, that's best, but some students just can't work it out. It's a lot, it's busy. If you know any seniors that are applying right now, ask them. There's a lot of work to be done around the time you're applying.
How long does it take for you to get like your results back, and if they get it before you do?
Oh, okay. So for the MCAT, it takes about a month to get your score back. For DAT, you get an unofficial score instantaneously when you're done. GRE, same thing. So that's nice. Med school students have to wait. You have to wait that month. Yeah. I know. And you'll find out first. Like it's not like sent to medical schools or anything.
Like if you take it like June but apply, will they get quicker so they can?
No, it still takes a month. No matter, it takes a month. There's like you take it this date and then it's projected that the score, it's not projected. They give a score release date. It's X. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
How common are gap years like for tech students? Super
common. Becoming more common. I would say at least 50% of our students. Some students, this is what I love. I love it when some student says, take a step back. They're at the sophomore workshop and they take a step back and they say, you know what? I struggled freshman year. My grades are a little low. I think I need more time. I'm going to take a year and I'm going to apply after senior year because then my senior year grades are wrapped up into the application. Whereas if you apply after junior year, they only see freshman, sophomore, or junior. What if you had a crappy freshman year? They only have 2 years worth of good grades. What if that's not that 3.7 yet? You might need extra time. Some students, it's hard to get everything done. Some students don't have much healthcare experience. They make a concerted effort to say, I'm going to take the extra year to get more healthcare experience. I love it when students take that step back, they think about it, and they say, I need more time for whatever reason, so I'm going to extend my timeline. That is no problem at all. That's like a wonderful, mature thing. Sometimes students say, I'm going to apply, I'm going to apply, I'm going to apply, and then they realize, oh crap, I can't get it all together. I'm still weak in healthcare experience, my grades still need to be improved, and it's just hard to do the MCAT and apply and get letters of recommendation and write my personal statement and take summer school and whatever else it is. So some students are forced, kind of in the middle of I'm going to apply, or they get their MCAT score back or their DAT score back. Oh, now I really have to wait to apply because it wasn't competitive. So taking a mature step back early on to say, I think I need more time, is probably better than scrambling at the end and then just kind of forcing yourself to take the extra time, which is still okay, which is better than applying when you're not your most competitive self. You want to be at your most competitive self. Grades, test score, all the extracurriculars before you apply. Because if it turns out you don't get accepted, it's a lot of money. Hundreds for the test, hundreds for the application. But by all means, if your ducks are in a row and you're ready, and you're a sophomore now and you're a junior next year and you're ready to apply summer after junior year to start right after you graduate, it's probably around 50-50 right now. Students are doing both and taking a gap, a glide. Some people are calling it a growth year because that sounds very positive, right? That is not a problem at all. A lot of our students are doing it. No shame in that at all. I had a student when I was in upstate New York as an advisor, took 2 years after he graduated to go to the Peace Corps, came back, got a job in healthcare, took the MCAT, took a year to apply. It was 4 years since he graduated before he got accepted to med school. He was so mature, he had great test scores, he had great experiences. He got accepted to like 4 or 5 medical schools. He took a 4-year gap. Did that hurt him at all? Absolutely not. He's one of the best applicants I've probably ever seen, growth and maturity wise. Okay, we probably got to cut it off. I will gladly talk to you more about these things in the halls or, in an appointment or whatever. So I thank you for your time and your attention. I hope you learned something. I don't mean to scare you to death, but this is the reality of your goals, okay? Thank you all for coming. Have a great one. Enjoy your fall break soon.
If you didn't sign in, please sign in.
Oh, yes, please.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.